Hamas controls the Ministry of Education. Hamas controls the Ministry of Health. Hamas controls the Ministry of Defense. Hamas controls the Ministry of Communication. They control everything in Gaza. And who do you think works in these people? What do you think? Hamas are like 5 people that just parachuted into Gaza? They are all the Palestinians living in Gaza. So I do support Netanyahu's full force going into Gaza. Good for him to doing that. And I hope that they will not have a ceasefire. Yes, there's a lot of destruction. Look, it's collateral damage. You know, Israel did not ask for this. The Palestinians asked for this. Remember, Peter, Israel left Gaza in 2005, and they took out every single Jewish person out of Gaza. I mean, remember the fights in Gush Katif, when even the Jewish people did not want to leave, and the Israeli IDF turned against its own people, kicking and screaming, dragging them out, taking them, evacuating Gaza in order to turn Gaza to the Palestinians. Israel not only took the Jewish people who were alive out of Gaza, Israel went in and dug the bodies out of the Jewish cemeteries of the people who were buried in Gaza, because they knew what the Palestinians are going to do to the cemeteries. You and I know what they do. They have no respect for anything. So by the end of 2005, there were no Jewish people alive or dead in Gaza. Gaza could have been an oasis. Gaza could have been Singapore. The Palestinians had an opportunity after opportunity to build Gaza to become Singapore, to build Gaza to become a commercial center. They have received billions of dollars from the world, but they did not do that. Instead, Hamas invested in building tunnels. Billions of dollars that went into the Palestinian Authority that Hamas siphoned. Their leaders got rich. They built tunnels instead of investing in their own people. And now they are paying the price. And that's exactly why you are seeing the level of destruction in Gaza, because Israel is not only trying to destroy the building above ground. The majority of the threat, the main threat, is what's underground. And in order for you to destroy the tunnels underground, Israel has to use the force that it is using. And we are seeing the level of destruction that we are seeing. And Israel has to see this through, ignoring all calls for ceasefire from anywhere else in the world. No one else in the world who's calling for ceasefire, Peter, lives in Sderot, live in Jerusalem. They don't. So they need to allow the people who live in these areas, who are under the attacks of Hamas, to be able to defend themselves.
Of course, you hear some from the international community saying those poor Palestinians living in Gaza, they're pawns of the Israelis, they are suffering under the Israelis, they have nothing, they live in an open prison. And yet, when you look at the international community, you're right, the money that's gone in, but also what has happened, I think, is a fault of the West, because the West have seen the people there living under Hamas and haven't thought of doing a thing about it. So, I mean, how do you see that? Because there are people there, but that narrative that, oh, it's all the Israelis' fault. And yet, you're right. Those living there have had, certainly the government have had every opportunity to build something special and prosperous.
Look, Peter, everybody talks about, oh, the poor Palestinians. You know, Hamas is bad, but it's the poor Palestinians who are paying the price. Who do you think Hamas is? Hamas did not fly in through the breeze and latch on some tree or latch on some hospital. Hamas are the Palestinians in Gaza. They are a part of the Palestinians in Gaza. They are elected by the people in Gaza. You know, I speak in my first book titled Because They Hate. I talk about when Hamas did the first election in Gaza. Remember, Israel pulled out. They left everything to the Palestinians. So the Palestinians had their own election, their first election. One of the lady that was elected, her name was Nidal. She became known as the al-Mukawama, the mother of the resistance. And the reason why she ran, the platform she ran on, is because she has videos. She sent 3 of her sons to die as suicide bombers. She actually, part of her campaign was showing videos of her standing next to her sons, putting their suicide belt on, sending them to Israel to blow themselves up. And they did blow themselves up, and they did die, and they did kill Israelis. So she ran on the platform, I already gave 3 sons. I have another 7 to give. That's why she was elected as a member of the government in Hamas. And that's just the first example in 2006. Who do people think Hamas is? Hamas are the Palestinians living in Gaza. And that's exactly why, they teach. Hamas controls the Ministry of Education. Hamas controls the Ministry of Health. Hamas controls the Ministry of Defense. Hamas control the Ministry of Communication. They control everything in Gaza. And who do you think works in these people? What do you think? Hamas are like 5 people that just parachuted into Gaza? They are all the Palestinians living in Gaza. This is the reality that the world has a very difficult time accepting. And here's another thing about the poor Palestinians. Where are the Palestinian voices that when the Hamas terrorists went into Israel on October 7th and kidnapped, we do not want to get into the details about massacring the babies, cutting off the heads, raping women, burning babies in ovens, etc., etc. Let's talk about the women and the children that they kidnapped and took back to Gaza. Where are the Palestinian voices saying, you can't kidnap a 6-month-old baby from his mom. You can't kidnap a 2-year-old little girl. You can't rape women. We are mothers. We are wives. We are grandmothers. We are women. You can fight man to man, but you cannot rape women. You cannot kidnap children. Where are the voices of the Palestinians' mothers? Nowhere to be found. As a matter of fact, what we saw was basically the girls that Hamas took as hostage, raped, and dragged as dead after they killed in the streets of Gaza. That girl was being kicked, shoved, dismantled. Instead of the people saying, no, we don't do this to dead people, especially naked Jewish women being paraded down the streets. Instead, they cheered them on with such glee, with such pride. Even the Palestinians in Gaza who were part of the Hamas massacre on October 7th. I mean, who can forget the guy calling his father, Father, put my mother on the phone. You're going to be so proud. I killed with my own hands 10 Israelis. I just couldn't wait to tell you so you can be proud of me. Who are these people? These are the people of Gaza. These are the Palestinians in Gaza. This is a reflection of a decayed society from the inside. Their end goal is destruction. They celebrate murder and cutting people off and kidnapping people and raping people. They celebrate it as a joyful act. Not even the Nazis rejoiced like that. While the Nazis wanted to kill their enemies, they did not send their own children to die and then celebrated their death just to kill their enemies. The Nazis did not do that. The Nazis knew they were doing something wrong. That's why they did it in secret. That's why they shot people in the back so they don't have to look them in the eye when they killed them. It's totally different with the Palestinians. So for all the people who are crying about the poor Palestinians in Gaza, oh, the poor Palestinians paying the price, the Palestinians in Gaza are Hamas. You make your bed, you lay in it. And I think a little history lesson here is very important. Remember, Peter, when the PLO was founded in 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, it was founded to wipe Israel off the map. At that time, Gaza was in the hand of Egypt with an Egyptian flag flying over Gaza. And the West Bank was in the hands of Jordan. A Jordanian flag was flying over Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. So when Yasser Arafat started the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, he was not liberating Gaza or the West Bank. Those were Jordan and Egypt. So what was he liberating? He was liberating back to the line of 48, Israel proper. They did not want an Israeli state to exist in the Middle East. But most people do not know their history. Most people ignore history. The history is boring. It's not interesting. But, somehow it's fashionable today in any country in the West, not just in our country, not to teach history. History is boring, so they ignore it. But that's the reality on the ground. They want to wipe Israel off the map. Fatah is no better than Hamas. Fatah is just weaker than Hamas. Meanwhile, the leaders of both organizations, the leaders of Fatah and the leaders of Hamas are all mega millionaires, multi-millionaires from all the aids that has gone to the Palestinian territory. They siphoned it off to their pocket, and it didn't go to the poor people who needed it. It went to their pockets with all their banks in Switzerland and in Paris and London and everywhere else. They are all rich, so they have a vested interest in keeping the charade going. Jew hatred in context of Islam. This is the subject that nobody wants to talk about because it's very uncomfortable. You know, two things people do not want to talk about: politics and religion. And when you're talking about the religion of Islam, you are talking about politics and religion mixed in one. Islam is a political movement cloaked in religion. So let's talk about Islam. You know, we all heard about the yellow star, and people think that was a German invention. The yellow star was an Islamic invention in the 9th century in Iraq by Khalif al-Mutawakkil, the second Khalif of Iraq, who invented the yellow star to identify the Jews as they walk down the street, because Jews under Islam are considered najis. Najis is an Arabic word that describes filth, bodily waste, dogs. Those are considered najis. Jews are in the same category. So the Khalif al-Mutawakkil invented the yellow star to identify the Jews when they walked down the street. So when they were walking down the street, if a Muslim man was coming, the Jew had to cross to the other side of the street as not to dirty the Muslim man who was of higher status, clean, who was walking this way. That's why they invented the yellow star. Germany, Hitler copied the yellow star because Germany was working with Al-Khalif of Jerusalem, the Mufti Hussein in Jerusalem, who flew to Germany, worked with Hitler, shared with them what the Islamists did to defeat the Jews. And that's how Germany came up with the yellow star and used it. And as a matter of fact, Hitler had a Muslim division headed by Mufti al-Husseini of Jerusalem, who was advising Hitler on how to deal with the Jews.
Wow. But expand, because obviously Hamas, even in the name, is what? Islamic resistance movement. It is purely Islam. And you can't, no matter how much the international community wants to get away from that, they can't. And of course, that is the fear, that religious context pulls other nations in. That is obviously the big fear.
Well, look, other nations know this stuff. Don't you think Jordan knows this stuff? Don't you think Saudi Arabia knows this stuff? Why do you think in Saudi Arabia, people like you and me cannot visit Al-Haramain, cannot visit Al-Kaaba, cannot visit the Medina? Why do you think that is? Because we are considered filth. We're not allowed, because we are Christians and Jews. We are not allowed to enter those cities. Not even Donald Trump went there when he visited Saudi Arabia. Nobody can go there unless you're a Muslim. So it's not that they don't know that stuff. It's we on our side who are pretending this stuff does not exist because we are uncomfortable discussing it, because it makes us uncomfortable discussing it. Nobody wants to talk about it because nobody wants to create ripples. It's time. This is why we talk about why Islam needs reforming and why these moderate leaders need to stand up and speak up. But the moderate leaders only stand up and speak up out of fear of Israel and out of respect for Israel. Sadat signed the peace treaty with Israel, not because he loved the Jews so much, but because after the 67 war and the 73 war, they realized they cannot beat the Jews. And if you cannot beat the Jews, okay, you have to live with them. We might as well live in peace. He realized, I'm not going to spend the rest of my days fighting with Israel. And that's why Sadat said, let's sign a peace treaty. Jordan did the same thing. Jordan followed, not because they loved Israel so much, because they realized, look, we have been involved with war with Israel in 57, in 67, in 73. We're not going to be able to win against them. They are there to stay. We might as well have peace. Notice today, after all the problems, this is where you are seeing now more writers in the Arabic press writing, whether in Egypt and Jordan. If we would have known Israel could be defeated, maybe we shouldn't have signed the peace treaty with Israel. People, I know Israelis want to be tolerated. They talk about tolerance all the time. Oh, tolerance is a major thing in the Jewish language. I would much rather be respected than tolerated, because people tolerate you only for so long as they have to tolerate you. But when they respect you, tolerance becomes a side effect of respect, because they're not going to want to mess with you. And so this is why, this is an issue that more people need to be talking about. And this is why we need to stand with Israel. We need to support Israel. Israel is truly the front line on this war against Western civilization. Israel is the pinnacle. It's the tip of the spear. We need to realize that Iran, which calls Israel the great Satan, remember, Israel is the little Satan. We are the big Satan. We are the end goal. Israel is just in the way in the Middle East. Iran wants to establish hegemony, and Israel is just an eyesore in its shoulder. You cannot get rid of an enemy that doesn't fear you. Back when Israel actually fought wars to win wars, not caring what the UN thought, not caring about the world media, back when Israel won 1967, back when Israel won 1973, the whole world was on the side of Israel. Israel fought a bloody war without caring what the UN thinks of Israel. So when Israel fought wars to win wars, the people respected Israel. When the new Israeli population started fighting wars, thinking, oh, is the UN going to like us? Oh my gosh, we know the UN is going to say bad things about us. Oh my goodness, what is America going to think about us? And the new generation wanted to live in a place, oh, we don't want to fight wars anymore. We want to leave. We want to have peace with them. This whole new weak generation who thought we can have peace with our enemies because, after all, we're all wonderful and we all want to have a party and we all want to go to concerts. And of course, Palestinian children would love to attend concerts as well. And of course, Palestinians want to live in peace as well. The Israeli side forgot what it's like because they had moved so far away from the Holocaust, they forgot how much people hated them. And when people hate you so much, I think this was a wake-up call to Israel to realize people really want to kill you. And not only kill you in Israel, they want to kill the Jews anywhere else in the world. They hate the Jewish people. When you see people in America screaming death to the Jews, when you see people in Australia screaming annihilate the Jews, when you hear people from Europe on the streets, less than 100 years since the Holocaust, screaming kill the Jews, the Jewish people worldwide need to realize we have to create a country where we have to fight to survive, period. It's about us. It's not about anybody else. People in Australia do not want to kill the Americans. They're not saying kill all the Christians. They're not saying wipe the Buddhists off the map. They want to wipe the Jews off the map. So we need to defend ourselves.